Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and today we're Skyping with world-renowned doctor and surgeon, Dr. Roger Lear, in regards to medical implants and alien abductions. Hey, thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon, Dr. Lear.
Well, it certainly is my pleasure to be with you, Blake.
All right, Roger. Hey, thanks for joining us, and let's get to it for all our YouTubers that are watching from around the world. What would you have to say to skeptics that these are meteorites instead of some kind of alien implants?
I'm sorry, I have to laugh because as far as I'm concerned, skeptics are psychics. Did you know that? No, probably not. But I had one intervention with a skeptic at a meeting that we had in Marina Del Rey, California, and he asked me if I'd turn this material over to the American Skeptic Society, and I said, no, why in the world would I want to do that? And he said, well, so we can give us, the true opinion of what these are. And I said, well, you don't need my specimens to do that because you're psychic. and the guy turned as red as the beet. He says, no, come on, man. I'm serious. We don't believe in psychics. It's all trickery. And went on for a couple of minutes. And I said, well, then maybe you can explain something to me. He said, yeah, what's that? And I said, well, how come you know all the answers to all the scientific data, but yet you never looked at any of it? So therefore, you got to be psychic. Scientific skeptics, and it's great to be skeptical. I think that if one doesn't question the basic things that is under question at the time, that they're not being realistic or scientific. But to have a society like the American Skeptic Society, in which they have, believe me, I've seen it, a nice big black book which covers, wrote every single question that has to do with the paranormal in detail. That's not being a skeptic. That's just getting somebody that's being paid to give an opposing position based on whatever nonsense is in this particular application.
What would it take to bring the whole big forum, the UN Congress, national press, and even non-US governments to come and talk about your findings?
Well, that's a good question because I've already appeared at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2009 along with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. And he looked at the work and was quite amazed at our findings, as I was, what he had to say about the information he obtained from the Pentagon, which said that Roswell was an extraterrestrial event, and it's been covered up for now, 60 plus years. So I was at the National Press Club. I was invited to speak at the SSE in Europe, in Paris, which was the Society for Scientific Exploration. And the only way that I could possibly do that with them after I got there was to have a secret meeting with some of the officials held in the Department of Chemistry in Paris. Now, two other uninvited individuals were one who was the equivalent of the French Space Society. I don't know whether he was a secretary or what. And the other one was another government official. Both walked in unannounced, and they were accepted, and they sat down. Didn't ask me one single solitary question. Took profuse notes, got up and left. And much to the chagrin of the rest of the Society for scientific exploration, they were, they were quite insulted. These guys didn't even say goodbye.
Roger, how many independent laboratories have concluded that these implants did not come from Earth? And can you show us the lab reports?
Well, there's been numerous laboratories, and I'd have to have a camera that would cover a large section of the room to show you the lab reports. But a great majority of the lab reports are on our website, which is alienscalpel.com. Other lab reports are complete in two of the books that I've written. One is The Aliens and the Scalpel, first edition, and then additional reports, the scientific data in Aliens and Scalpel, second edition. Now, I just happen to have and finish a book that's just come out in Paris, and if you don't mind, I don't know if you can see it or read it. The last week.
I got it.
But it's called Contacts OVNI La Dernière Frontière, and it means contacts with UFOs, the final frontier. And in it, there's an appendix in the book which is particularly for the scientific audience. It's not for the person who sits at home and wonders to himself what an isotopic ratio is or what the distance of our Milky Way galaxy is. It's a professional appendix with all the documentation in it that you could ever want, showing that these objects are non-terrestrial in nature and have been manufactured.
You know, Roger, what specific elements are in the implants and can be proven to be impossible to come from Earth?
Well, most of the elements in the universe that we know of are there. The only elements that we know of that you wouldn't find commonly in the universe are those which we artificially create in an atomic accelerator. So when you get past a certain proton number and you get to the atoms with the heavy nuclei, they get names like americanium and so on. One of the ones that is we do not find in abundance in the Earth's crust is iridium. And these objects have iridium in them. Now, in addition to that, the isotopic ratios, and for those that don't know what an isotope is, all they have to do is think of the atomic bomb. We notice that we're all interested in U-235. Well, what is U-235? What is U-236? U-234, and so on. Those are what we call isotopes of uranium, and which are determined by the number of protons and neutrons which are in the nucleus of the atom. Now, there is a certain ratio of, let's say, 235 to 236 within 2% of wherever we would mine that element on Earth. But if you look hypothetically at uranium that we know came from the moon or from Mars or an asteroid, we would also find uranium, but yet those isotopic ratios would not be the same, and we would consider those then non-terrestrial isotopic ratios. And those are some of the things that we find in the objects. Now, there are many more other things besides the isotopes and the elements themselves where we didn't even look for it, let's say 7, 8, 9 years ago. Evidence of nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is a level of manufactured structure on a single atom, based on a single atom. So we find, for example, carbon nanotubes. And these nanotubes are one single carbon atom laid one upon the other. Now you can make a sphere out of this and elongate it, and then you would have a whole tube of these atoms. These do not appear in nature. These, as far as Earth is concerned, have to be manufactured. And they are the strongest elemental device that's known today to man. We've been talking about it now for some time, about building a space tower out of carbon nanotubes that would support the launch of a vehicle, therefore cutting the fuel cost down tremendously. So there's talk about that. In Japan, there's talk about weaving carbon nanofibers into a cloth-like material. So, for example, a woman would be able to change the color of her dress. The dress might keep her warm in the winter and cool in the summer. The pattern might change. Now, we not only find carbon nanotubes and carbon nanofibers, which are a number of these put together, what we find is carbon nanostrands. And I can compare that to, the state-of-the-art ordinary electronics, where we take a copper wire and then we weave copper wires around that copper wire until we get a copper cable. And so the cables that we weave in general electronics, no matter how small, are similar to carbon nanostrands. And these are definitive electronic components. We also find, Blake, what are called orthorhombic crystals, and these are made of sodium chloride, in other words, the same as table salt. But table salt, the crystals are random in nature. These are rectangular, and they come in various sizes. And if I could take you back far beyond, I can see by your age, far beyond that age, in the early days of the crystal set radio, all you needed was a crystal, a copper coil, an earphone, and a battery, and you could get a radio program. And still, till this day, we don't know what it is in a crystal that actually will carry a radio wave. So here we find objects with non-terrestrial isotopic ratios. We find rare earth elements. We find carbon nanospheres, carbon nanotubes, carbon nanostrands. And then we find other objects which we do not know what they are, such as gold spheres or other elongated objects made of material deep down in crevasses that sometimes don't measure any larger than an atom.
Very interesting. Why, in your opinion, is disclosure being withheld?
Well, disclosure is being withheld for numerous reasons that have changed since Roswell of 1947 till today. I believe that in Roswell of 1947 that the United States government was in a real quandary as to what crashed in Roswell, because we had just come out of a war situation. We didn't really know what the Soviets had, we didn't know what Germany had, and so on. But now I believe that, to make a long opinion shorter, that it's surpassed governments, and that the primary knowledge, UFO knowledge, is in the hands of the very, very large multinational corporations.
This is quite fascinating, and we're sure getting a lot of information right here. How long do you think mankind has been abducted, and in your opinion, what's a purpose for abductions?
Oh, that is an excellent question, and one of my friends is Jordan Maxwell, who has been studying the occult, which means the hidden knowledge, for over 50 years. And it can take you back to ancient times. I believe that one of the stories that's in the Bible about the Tower of Babel. Do you remember the story of the Tower of Babel? How man wanted to get closer to God, so he built a tower and got him, up above the earth, and then God didn't like that, so God got mad, and as punishment, he confused the language so that they couldn't communicate with each other. The big question is, if they couldn't communicate with each other after the Tower of Babel was built and mankind was punished by God, then how did they communicate before? So perhaps one of our original genetic traits was the ability to be able to communicate telepathically, and perhaps that might be more common in universal life than we might think.
This has been an incredible interview, and I really want to thank you, Dr. Roger Lear, for joining us right here on Third Phase of Moon.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and anytime you want to do this again, why, I'd be most happy to arrange my schedule.
That would be great to get back with you, Dr. Roger Lear, in regards to more information that you may have. Thanks again. I want to thank our people and subscribers from around the world watching us right here, right now on Third Phase of Moon. And if you've captured anything amazing in regards to UFOs, contact us at Third Phase of Moon via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.